Huawei is seriously going after Apple and Samsung with the launch of its latest flagships. The P20 and P20 Pro borrow some obvious features from the iPhone X and Galaxy S9, but almost step into overkill territory with the cameras. As in, there's 3 of them on the Pro's rear. 3! And the selfie camera is 24 megapixels, because you really want to see every little pore in your face. In fact, the P20 Pro is a megapixels beast. Counting all 4 cameras, including the one up front, there's a total of 92 megapixels. Clearly, cameras are an important highlight of the P20s, but there are a couple of intriguing new features as well, so let's take a closer look. First thing you'll notice is the P20's stunning new color option. This purple-green gradient is called Twilight, like the sparkly vampires. It's incredibly eye-catching, but it also attracts fingerprints. When you're done being distracted by the new gradients, you might notice the 3 cameras on the P20 Pro's back. This is only on the larger of the pair of handsets, which by the way sport 6.1-inch and 5.8-inch Full HD Plus screens. The Pro has a 40 megapixel RGB sensor, a 20 megapixel monochrome, and an 8 megapixel telephoto one. So in addition to the typical portrait-style photos that dual cameras typically offer, the P20 Pro and its Leica cameras also enable something Huawei calls hybrid zoom. It uses the telephoto lens for optical zooms up to 3 times, and after that combines data from the telephoto and the main sensor to take you the rest of the way. This is supposed to provide better clarity for your faraway subjects, and I tested this on distant trees and buildings, and indeed details remain sharp, but I haven't compared it to other flagship smartphones yet, so I can't tell you if there's a definite benefit to having this third sensor here. In addition to mimicking Samsung's reimagination of its cameras, Huawei also borrowed another feature from the Galaxy S9's, ultra slow-mo, which by the way Samsung got from Sony in the first place. Anyhow, the P20 and P20 Pro can shoot video at up to 960 FPS and 720p, so if you want dramatically slow video, you've got it. It's harder to find slow-mo mode on the P20s than on Samsung's and Sony's phones, but once you've enabled it, all you've got to do is hit record to capture a 0.2 second clip. This execution is different from Samsung and Sony in that it doesn't require you to already be recording before triggering bursts of slow-mo. Just press the button and all you get is 960 FPS glory. It took me a while to figure out when exactly to hit record to get the action I wanted slowed down. I was pressing the button too early. So poor Chris Velasco here had to get his face smacked by giant snowballs 3 times before I got the perfect shot. But the end result is stunning. That footage in bright daylight is clear and smooth, but it'll most likely suffer under lower light. Speaking of, Huawei also took pains to improve the P20's low light performance. The camera packs AI image stabilization to make handheld long exposure less blurry, and it can theoretically go up to ISO 102-400 to take pictures in near pitch black situations. However, when we tried this, we were only able to go up to ISO 3200 manually, so maybe the high ISO is something that kicks in when the AI takes over. Finally, there's a new color temperature sensor on this thing that's supposed to help adjust your white balance automatically. We didn't really get to try this out though, but suffice to say, most of our pictures appear to have the right color temperature. Moving over to the front, you've got the 24 megapixel selfie camera. Now, I normally don't like having super sharp front sensors because they usually result in unflattering photos that highlight every little flaw on my face. But the portraits I shot with the P20 actually looked nice. In daylight, they were overexposed, but indoors my selfies appeared even. And pretty, if I do say so myself. Speaking of the front camera, Huawei borrowed another feature from Apple and Samsung. And let's not forget OnePlus. The P20s support Face Unlock and was really fast during our hands-on, but because it relies solely on the 24 megapixel camera, it's not as secure as the iPhone's Face ID or the S9's iris scanner. Another thing Huawei blatantly copied from Apple is the notch. Yep. Huawei expanded the P20 screen all the way to the top of the phone and adopted the notch to house the front camera and speaker. But you can't hide this if you don't like it, and the top row then just becomes an always-on indicator bar. I don't mind the notch by now, but it's nice to have the option to hide it since not all apps and media play nice with it yet. Aside from the third sensor, all the features I've described so far are on both the smaller and larger versions of the P20. The differences between the two are otherwise minor, but noteworthy. For one, the Pro has an impressive 4000 mAh battery versus a smaller 3400 mAh cell on the regular. The larger one also has 6 gigs of RAM instead of just 4 gigs on the smaller, and it's more water resistant with a rating of IP67 compared to the smaller IP53. Most importantly, the 5.8-inch P20 uses an LCD screen instead of the bigger one's OLED display. Also, the big changes here clearly revolve around the camera, and they sound great on paper, but we're not sure they're actually going to be that useful in real life. It's also important to note that the P20s aren't coming to the US. That's not surprising, given Huawei's recent troubles with carriers and retailers like AT&T and Best Buy. That's a big deal, especially for a company like Huawei that has said many times in the past that it wants a slice of the US market. It's also a shame personally, because that means I'm most likely never going to get a Twilight phone.